We're really excited to welcome our keynote panel tonight on cybersecurity for the modern workplace. Joining us is Corey Ball, Senior Manager, Moss Adams, and Chief Hacking Officer, AppySec University, Jordan Smith, Founder and CEO of VLOC Systems, and Mark Hinkle, Chief Operating Officer for Atro. So how about the three of you come on up here? I'm going to move this out of your way, and let's put our hands together for our three speakers.
Check. There we go. Hey, we're going to see if we can be high-tech about this. So I brought a paper copy, too, because iPads never work. But it's exciting to be here with you guys, talking about a little bit on the subjects of cybersecurity. So my name is Jordan Smith. I'm with a company here in town called VLOC Systems. And what I want to do is I got voted as the moderator of the cybersecurity panel as well. So I'm going to let these guys do most of the talking. I'm going to ask some questions. We'll have some dialogue up here. And then at the end, we want you guys to queue up some questions yourselves, because we're going to take some Q&A that Shannon will facilitate, right? Awesome. So just a couple of headlines like I read today. April 25th, Kansas City's traffic system got hacked in Kansas City. So like those reader boards in larger cities where it's like, it's going to be 25 minutes to get to this side of town. That like they had to turn all those off because their whole system got hacked today. Like that's just a cybersecurity incident on a massive scale. I mean, think of the damage that could have been done, right? Like, hey, this road's closed, go that way, and you could start really affecting traffic or causing some dangerous situations. We probably all heard about the United Healthcare hack back on February 21st. And today they just, or this week, they just confirmed that not only was all their data encrypted and unavailable, but the attackers harvested data, that's patient data, going out into these bad actors, and then they paid the ransom to keep them from like using that data and advertising it on the dark web. They probably just took the money and are still going to do whatever they want to do with that. But that's the kind of thing that's happening in the news. And then where is this going? Sweden's liquor system. It's a state-run liquor system, just like the state of Oregon, got hacked, and the shelves are like empty. There's no beer, there's no wine. Guys, the world's coming to an end. I mean, this is bad stuff. So we want to be up here, and one of our focuses this evening is to really like equip you guys as our Central Oregon community, those that are leading business in Central Oregon, with just the awareness of what's going on. Give you some tools to go back to your organizations and personally that you can use to help not be United Healthcare, help not be the transportation system in Kansas City, and help not be the liquor system and spirits system in Sweden. Because all of those attacks were probably one person clicking one link and providing information that infected and attacked the whole rest of the organization. So we want our community not to be that. So I'll turn it over to these guys, and if you can give us just an intro to yourselves in your own words and a little background on kind of what you've been up to in the cybersecurity space. We'll start with Corey and work our way back, and then I'll answer last. You guys, an on button, you gotta flip it to the one.
Test.
There you go.
Hi, my name is Corey Ball. I've been in IT and cybersecurity for the past 13 years. I've been with Moss Adams as a senior manager over penetration testing for the past 4.5 years. Quick show of hands, how many people know what penetration testing is? Okay, better than I thought. But essentially, we emulate criminal attackers in what they would do to businesses in order to help report vulnerabilities and help organizations close those gaps so that they don't get attacked as easily. Recently, I wrote this book over here called Hacking APIs. It came out about 2 years ago, and after that was released, I founded the API Security University, which is a completely free educational platform on all things API security. I've said API multiple times now, not to be confused with IPAs, which I did last night. I ordered an API instead of an IPA. Can't imagine why. And so APIs are application programming interfaces, which is even more confusing than APIs. And so what those are the web requests that are going on in the background of pretty much everything you do online. There are different estimates out there, but all web traffic, out of all of that, about 80+% is API related. Out of all internet traffic, it's over 50% of all of that is API related. And so regardless of what technology we're talking about, APIs are often on the back end orchestrating the flow of the world's most valuable resource, or at least one of them, data. So, check out the book. Check out AppySec University, completely free if you want to learn more about API security.
Hi, my name is Mark Hinkle. I am the COO of Atro. Atro does foundational cybersecurity for small and medium businesses. And so what is foundational cybersecurity? Foundational cybersecurity are the most basic and important things that any smaller business can do to protect themselves from a cyber attack. And I think there's a lot of smoke and mirrors in the cybersecurity industry, but we're trying to simplify that and get it down to those basic things that any small business can do that have outsized returns in terms of protecting themselves from a cybersecurity perspective. Prior to my time at Atro, I co-founded a company here in Bend called Manzama back in 2010. We actually won the Bend Venture Conference that year, and that was the last time I was on the EdCo stage. I said to my wife, in your wildest dreams, can you believe that I'm back on stage at EdCo? And she said, babe, you're not in my wildest dreams. So that was, she's here in the second row. That's her blushing. But anyways, really excited to be here with these guys and have this discussion, and we'll try to make what I think is a pretty boring discussion, hopefully interesting. So over to you.
Yeah, nice. Thanks, Mark. I'm honored to be here with these two guys. I think if I had to guess, they're probably a lot smarter than I am in application development and application product design. I work with a company, VLOC Systems. You guys probably heard of it by now. So we do end user support. So we're really kind of on the front lines, I think, as far as the industry goes, really seeing how folks are working day to day. And so that's our business has been built initially as just a service desk and kind of moved into the strategy and then specifically the cybersecurity space over the last 15 years here in Central Oregon. So we get to work with a lot of you guys and folks like yourselves in the community that are interacting with cyber threats every day. And so we've got a pretty good team. My security specialist here, Anthony McMillan, and he's designed some pretty cool solutions within our organization for our clients that help kind of build the cybersecurity background. So, or backbone and protection. So that's my role here, as well as kind of facilitating the discussion. So I was talking with these guys a couple of weeks ago, and we were just kind of like sharing a couple of, kind of some horror stories and alluding to some horror stories that we've heard, and then just kind of like trends of what's going on, which is a really interesting discussion. These guys are in some pretty cool spaces to really see a lot nationally and kind of what's going on around the country. And so I wanted to open up with just kind of setting the stage. Like, give us some trends and some stats and kind of what you're seeing happen in the cybersecurity realm right now. Mark, you want to take that first?
I actually brought a couple stats here because I didn't think, with sources, because I don't think anyone's going to believe these. They're pretty sobering. A 2023 study by security company BlackFog found that over half, 61%, of small and medium-sized businesses in the US and the UK faced a successful cyber attack in the last year. 61% successful. The second study, to kind of corroborate that, said the Identity Theft Resource Center's 2023 Business Impact Report states that roughly 73% of US small business owners reported a cyber attack in the last year. So it's crazy. If that doesn't get your attention, I don't know what will. So the trends is that it's happening more, and it's happening more to small businesses, unfortunately. the bigger guys, the bigger companies have the resources to protect themselves, right? They've got money, they've got people in-house that are dedicated to waking up every day and doing the work that it takes to protect that company. And they tend to use what we call point solutions, which are, expensive, usually complicated, technically complicated solutions that accomplish usually one part of cybersecurity. And they cobble these things together into sort of a united front, and they wake up every day and they make sure those things are working, and they monitor them, and that's what they do. And so what's happened is the attackers have moved downstream to the easier targets, which are small and medium businesses. And a couple of other very interesting things have happened in the last 5 or 10 years. One is the advent of cryptocurrency. So what happened with cryptocurrency is now ransom payments became anonymous, right, and untraceable. So law enforcement, they can't trace where those payments are coming from. So just like with United Health, these attackers, it's profitable. They get money. They get a lot of money for successful attacks, and those payments, unfortunately, are untraceable with cryptocurrency. So that's one big thing that's changed. Another big thing that's changed is AI. We hear about AI a lot in the world today, but now they can make these attacks indiscriminately. So it used to be like, I'm going to, pick a company, I'm going to attack that company, and you did it deliberately. Now they can write scripts or code that essentially will go out and just attack indiscriminately hundreds, thousands of companies at one time and look for vulnerabilities and then capitalize on those vulnerabilities. So it's not a pretty picture out there. And I would just say that if you don't have any security measures in place, you need to get them in place sooner rather than later, because unfortunately, it's no longer a question of if, it's a question of when. So, Corey, over to you.
Let's see. Yes, okay. Yeah, so I was going to speak to emerging technologies as well on AI. Everyone's heard of AI? Just kidding. People are still clicking on things. Attackers are still getting in through social engineering. Even if you have a multi-million-dollar cybersecurity budget, you run a casino, rhymes with M&Ms. Someone can make a phone call, and if you don't have procedures in place, then you can get the administrator password reset and lose millions of dollars a day and pay ransom payments and everything else. And so people are still clicking on things. Social engineering is still at the top. Risk for individual companies. Someone can call and attempt to gather information or take advantage of a process or send an email to try and get you to click on it. So that's still there. It's alive. Hopefully you're doing some sort of awareness training, maybe some phishing emails to train staff to be on the lookout for sketchy emails that can ruin businesses. Outside of that, emerging technologies, AI. Now, whether you're implementing AI at your business to keep up with everyone else that's doing it and to keep up with the attackers that are doing it, that introduces new risks of leaking data. And so if you have a chat bot at your company and your employees are now taking client data, putting it into that's going to another organization's servers. It's leaving your organization. Everything you've done to try and manage that data and keep it safe within your organization, this is a new way for it to leave. And so not only do you have to be on the lookout for criminals that are using this against your organization, but you also have to be on the lookout for new ways that your data could be leaked by employees trying to be more efficient and do their jobs there. Also, on the AI side, it just opens up this whole Pandora's box of issues. Attackers now can easily deploy code, inside your company, so can your developers. And so something that happened with APIs is we, cybersecurity industry, worked on closing down all the web application vulnerabilities that have been around for decades, and they were doing a pretty good job. But then APIs came along, and it was the Wild West again, where these things that have been closed down for 20 years are now starting to pop back up. And the same thing is going to happen with the emergence of AI and using that to deploy code within organizations. Just like any other technology that's new and being adopted, it is not secure yet. Normally, just as far as the trends go, that comes afterwards when people start getting breached and there's a cost involved. But right now we're just seeing the opportunity for a business, to keep up and make more money. You deploy this and so you'll have developers that are deploying insecure code within your environment very efficiently. And we'll see a new emergence of all sorts of attacks that, once again, we thought we were done with, we're protected from, but now they're going to come back because of this new way to quickly and easily deploy code.
Yeah, it's a good point on that is like, you guys have heard of ChatGPT, right? It's generative AI. It actually knows how to write malicious code. And everyone has access to that. So I, as a student or as a novice or as an aspiring hacker, like I could just go onto ChatGPT and say, hey, I want to write a PowerShell script that runs a remote procedure call and whatever. Like I could be really specific with what I want it to do. I'd have to know that. And hit enter and it'll spit out the code that you need to do that. So you no longer have to be terribly experienced or terribly advanced in software development, software engineering, which these attackers traditionally have been. It kind of opens the door up, which I think is a little bit of what Corey is getting at, to anyone being able to do that. So the availability and accessibility to that kind of, to create that code and create that malicious software is just getting really high, which is a kind of a new problem with the advent of AI. One of the things about all this is like, one of the trends I'm seeing is you used to, especially with ransomware. So I've been in the IT industry since before ransomware was actually a thing, which is weird to say. It was phishing. I think it just come out or something. Like that was the thing. Everyone's getting phished. People are still getting phished. But now we have ransomware. And the thing about ransomware is it like destroyed your data. So like, has anyone been attacked by? You don't have to raise your hand. Has anyone been attacked by a ransomware virus? It like locks everything down and you can't access it anymore. And then there's this thing on your screen that says if you pay us $1 million, we'll give you the code to unlock it, which they never do. Do not pay it. And that was like used to be the worst case scenario. Now the worst case scenario is really what United Healthcare was talking about, how they were trying to pay ransom for people not to give their data back, but not to give it to someone else. So that exfiltration of data, now they got customer information, client information, they have invoice information. In the healthcare environment, that's really expensive, really fast, because lawsuits come with that. And that's no longer just between you and this bad actor, it's now between you and your clients who you've, because of your company, because of doing business with you, all that information's been leaked. So it gets really expensive really, really fast, and it's like we long for the days where we just lost our data. Now people are giving it away, and our clients are finding out about it. You're actually ethically obligated to tell them that that's going to happen, or that that's happened. So is that right?
Yeah, yes. Yes? Yes, that's right. A good example of that is one of the largest telecom providers in Australia last year. Historical event, the largest data breach of Australian history happened last year. APIs were related, that's why I know about it. But what happened was a new type of ransomware event. So an attacker goes in, they collect all the data using the APIs, and now they have an entire client customer database. This would be like Verizon or T-Mobile. And all that data is collected, and what they decided to do was actively ransom off that data. So they told them, you must pay us $10 million by Friday, and every hour until then, we're going to leak out 100 instances of real customer data just to prove that we have it, and it's going to continue leaking out until you pay us. So, yeah, new way to be ransomed.
Yeah. Yeah, and I keep bringing up United Healthcare because I get $5 every time I mention their breach from Providence. Who's in the room? So story time. Let's get a little excited here. What's the worst cybersecurity event that you've encountered in your season in the industry?
Yeah, so we've been talking about United Healthcare and Australian Telecom or whatever it's called, but I would imagine most people in this room are smaller business owners or work for smaller companies or medium-sized companies. So, and like I was saying earlier, it doesn't just happen to the big guys, it happens to the small guys. So this is an example of one that happened to a smaller company that involved kind of two different attack vectors. The first was what we call credential stuffing, which is a glorified way of saying you're reusing your passwords too much. And this happens all the time. I'm sure nobody in here, this room, is doing that, right? Nobody's using any passwords, right? Everyone's using a password manager. Happens all the time where people cross over their passwords they're using in their personal life. They use it on multiple accounts in their personal life. Not only that, but then they take it to their work world and they use them in their business world. And another interesting stat is 90% of cyber attacks come from social engineering. And what that means is through people. So your biggest risk at your business is your people. And one of the ways you can, defend against that is by educating your people. And security awareness training is super important. And making your organization security-minded, and phishing is part of that. Most attacks come through phishing. And so this one came through phishing. This one came through credential stuffing. So what someone was doing is they were using, again, their personal password. That got compromised. Then they got onto their work systems that way because they followed, it was probably their email. They followed them onto their work world. They got onto the work server. Then they started downloading information off the work server, including invoices and financial information. And so once they had the invoices, they understood the pattern of the invoices, the amount of the invoices, and also who the invoices were coming from. So then what they did is they called the company that was, they posed as the company and as the supplier company, and they called the company that was being attacked. And they said, hey, this is so-and-so from the company, and it didn't raise any eyebrows because that was a supplier of theirs. And they said, we're changing banks. And here's our new bank, and here's our new routing number. And, sure enough, they're like, no problem. They changed over the bank, and then they started sending them fake invoices, right? And so people just paid them because the invoices looked the same. And, no one thought anything about the change bank account. Well, obviously, the bank account was now going to the attackers. And it wasn't until a few months of that, until they started to see duplicative invoices and go, wait a minute, what's going on here, that they found out what was going on. So that's invoice fraud. I'm sure you guys have heard about invoice fraud. I even see that in my own personal email where I just get these invoices. I'm, what the hell is this? And it's just nonsense. Just someone sending me an invoice for something I've never heard of. Happens all the time. And the password reuse is a big problem too. There are what's called password managers you can use that are vaults. You just have one master password. It will access all your passwords. It's actually a pretty slick way to not have to remember passwords because that's annoying for all of us. But anyways, that was one that I thought was kind of interesting and was... Yeah.
It gets really expensive really quick. Corey, do you have a horror story?
Many.
Just one.
Just one. So I'm going to cheat and say we've seen many APIs, healthcare organizations, financial institutions. You can just transfer money to yourself. You can just make a few requests and get everyone's passports and healthcare information. So those are out there. But the worst one goes to a building owner in the Pacific Northwest. And we were testing out the building. So the engagement was go into the lobby, essentially, and plug in to just any Ethernet jack that you can see and see what you can do. And so we did that, and spoilers, it's just Ocean's 11. So if you've seen Ocean's 11, we could get into all the security cameras. We can get into the physical security. So anyone that locked their doors, but you have electronic locks, we could just open all of those, see all the cameras, and then also get into all the boardrooms throughout the entire building. So even though these are all individual different businesses throughout the building, they're connected back in and networked back to that port in the lobby. And so we were able to go from there and then get into all the different businesses and all the different boardrooms and open and go into them if we wanted to and steal all the computers and walk away and delete the footage afterwards. Yeah, that's right. No cyber criminal for me. But that's probably the worst, just being able to go into any lobby. And it's a public lobby for the most part. So anyone could have done that at any point and walked away and no one would really know. Yeah,
I think for me, just a quick story. The worst time, we've had people get ransomware and all this stuff. We have backups, we got, we can reconstruct data, like all of that. We've handled those. The worst one that we've ever come to is going to a new client and their whole system was destroyed. And the only person that knew any of the passwords to get anything back was a former employee. who was now disgruntled and no longer liked the company, and the attack was from the inside. That was something we weren't their provider yet. We came in to replace that person, and I'm like, there's no way back from this. Like, legally, this person is on all the accounts that you're trying to get access to, and there's gonna be years of legal work to try and get you, as the owner of the business, even though you're owner of the business, into access to some of these really large things, like your domain name at GoDaddy or whatever. Like, that's really, really hard to recover if you don't have the login and credentials, or you're not the person that originally opened the account. So super big piece of warning: if you have only one person that's got the keys to the kingdom in your organization, like, even if you trust them, they could also die. Sadly, God forbid. But if they did, like, you wouldn't. Then you're really up the creek, because you can't even sue them to get it back. Get hit by the bus, exactly. So we just have a few more minutes before we start taking questions from the audience. And what I would love from you guys, I think we've got some IT individuals, either in the IT department, IT managers, CIOs, that sort of thing, that have come to this. What can we do as IT personnel within our organization to get, first of all, anybody from IT in their company here? Yeah, who is the worst person to try and get to follow cybersecurity protocols? The CEO, right? The owner, yeah, absolutely. And so how do we convince our leadership team and the people that are really, writing the checks and checking our decisions to get some traction on what we know needs to be done?
So it's essentially like your get out of jail free card. You can only use it a couple times. Going the scare tactic route, which is the average cost of a data breach for a company in the US is just under $10 million. And so do you have insurance? Does your insurance cover that? And then are you doing everything you need to keep your insurance and make sure that you're covered on that end? And not to mention, there's the financial side of it. Can you survive that? Maybe, maybe not. When I brought it up, they could not. They couldn't survive 10% of that. And so they were happy to start listening to the rest of the conversation, which was less on the scare tactic side and more on the solution side. Make sure you're prepared with that. But yeah, making sure that those things are in place and making sure that they're aware of the risk helps start the conversation. And then with you coming in with the solutions that are across the board, some things are going to cost more, some things are going to cost less, and how long it's going to take to implement that. And then you could also turn it into a much more positive conversation of what sorts of things can you do in your organization? Can you pass an audit that can be shared with your clients, that you can share on your website, that demonstrates that you have a certain level of cybersecurity and that you value your clients' data? So are there opportunities that could also come out of this instead of just the scare tactics?
Yeah, I would say, and a plug for Corey, a penetration test is really good too. Having somebody come in and try to break. And chances are, if your CEO is the person that's the most difficult to follow the rules, they also probably have the most access to the data in your organization. And that's going to come out in a pen test super easy. And they're usually relatively low cost. Compared to a breach or even implementing solutions that you're trying to convince them to do, you can come in and just say, hey, let's just have someone come in and see what our vulnerabilities are. So I want to be conscious of time for Q&A. Sorry, Mark, I didn't give you a chance to
How about a round of applause for our panelists? Well, this has been an absolute delight. Nightmare, really nightmare. So many opportunities for criminal masterminds out there. Gosh, who knew? Do I have questions from the audience? Yes.
Yeah, so United Healthcare paid over $1 billion, is what their charge was for that. If you were advising them, what should they then do?
Okay, so this is a great question. United Healthcare paid over $1 billion to deal with this situation. What would you have advised them to do? Love this question.
Yeah, so definitely need to get the right people in the room. There are actual brokers now for ransomware, so third parties that sit in the middle and make sure that they'll hold any ransom that's paid, and completely against paying those and funding terrorism and every other horrible thing and all the wrong people in the world. But when they do, make sure you're doing it where you have a broker in the middle that's going to make sure that the criminals that have call centers and have very professional things, because it's a business, a legal business, and so make sure you have the brokerage in between that is going to work through that horrible deal that they have to go through and make sure that both ends are held up.
So it's basically an escrow company for cyber attacks.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah. Does First American Title do that? Anyone know?
Would it be better to just split the pot with the people, like, sorry, but here's some cash? I don't know. Maybe. Okay, any other questions? But yes. What is the best practice? Yeah, this is a great question. What is the best practice for working on public networks, small business owner, independent people working in coffee shops, et cetera, airports?
Yeah, great question. Don't work in public. No, I'm just kidding. Hopefully your company provides you a VPN if you're traveling a lot, and that's an acronym for a virtual private network. And what that does is that secures your email while you're, like, let's say at an airport or something like that, or a cafe. But I think a good rule of thumb is just don't log on to, from a personal perspective, don't log on to your bank, don't log on to your brokerage account when you're at an airport or in an internet cafe. Save that for home, but try not to do that. But from a work perspective, it's really if your company doesn't have that, that's what they should be doing for you to effectively work in a non-secure environment. Another question?
Yes.
Thirdly, MFA, multi-factor authentication on all your accounts, especially your email account. But obviously anything critical like banks, any way you can, do so. What's the other one? Oh, firewall. Make sure your host firewall on your computer is enabled. And normally things like Defender and other antivirus endpoint protection software will alert you if it isn't. But if you do those things, it's great. If you're connecting to your work, use their VPN. If your work is allowing you to access their properties without VPN, it probably means it's on the open internet anyway, so that's really their problem at that stage.
Yeah, so use the VPN, multi-factor authentication. Also, what was the other thing? Computer hygiene.
I was hoping somebody would bring that up. So there are specific technical controls that we need to put in place, and it's like, man, if we could explain that to you in 25 minutes, that we would have loved to, but you have to find somebody like this guy sitting right over there that knows those items specifically and can put those controls in place. That's why I was kind of asking, like, there's IT professionals in here, like, let's give them the tools and kind of equip them to bring this back to their organization.
It's almost like there should be like a public safety workshop offered.
I know, we need like a full hour or two.
I could show with my janky laptop and make y'all cry, like, it's working for now. Yeah, not great. Okay, do I have any other questions? Yes, in the back.
What advice would you give to users or owners of companies that are hesitant to adopt MFA?
Okay, what advice would you give to users or owners of company who are hesitant to adopt MFAs?
So we run into this all the time. That's my plant. The biggest thing about it is, like, you think MFA and it's like, oh, I gotta like wait for a text message, type in a 6-digit code every time I log into something. And the reality is it's not true. That's often not the way it works, and certainly not once we get it, implemented into a business or enterprise environment. I would set up a demo, honestly. Like, I think that's the most effective way. Just get the phone and the computer and log them in and show them how easy it is, because guys, they've made it so easy. You just have your phone and you push a button, or you have your phone and you type in 2 numbers that it shows you on the screen. And then there's best practices and policies in place. It's like, we're going to remember you for a little bit when you're from this device, from this IP address, in this session. You're not doing it constantly, right? And it's like, it's that fatigue of having to do it over and over again that actually makes this less secure, because people stop watching, they stop paying attention, and they just start clicking. That's how Uber got hacked. I'll take money from any Lyft representatives in the room. That's how Uber got hacked last year. Is one of their higher up guys, the same thing. Just like you said, it's like somebody broke their password, and they kept seeing the ching, 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 MFA, 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 and they finally just gave up because it was obnoxious.
Another thing I would encourage everyone to do that's a business owner, if you work at a company, is you need to have a policy in place, right? Everyone needs to know what's expected of them and what the rules are, right? Like, you can't just have it be the wild, wild west where people don't understand what the boundaries are. And so it starts with some really basic things like having a policy and having education and having awareness and talking about these things. As far as two-factor authentication, multi-factor specifically, I go back to stats all the time. We use stats a lot when we're selling our solution, and it's just like, if you don't believe us, here's the stats. Like the stats I read to you guys, and I mean, if that doesn't get someone's attention to make them realize that this is important and necessary, then I don't know what does, you know? But it's funny, the company that acquired us, that acquired Manzama, you know, we were just a small company in Bend, Oregon, and they got acquired by this big New York-based software company, and they had all these things in place. And I was the guy that was super resistant and was like, this is bullshit. Like, why do I have to do all this stuff, you know? But it's funny that now I'm like, oh yeah, that's really important. Things have changed a lot since then too. It's got the world's gotten a lot more dangerous, but yeah, it is important.
Earlier, Mark's horror story was credential stuffing, which is defeated by multi-factor authentication for the most part. And if you want a fun thing you can do, you can Google, have I been pwned? Yep, and then take the CEO's email address, and then you put it in there, and then you can see everywhere their email has been breached, and all the passwords that they've had that have
Often
been
in plain
leaked.
text.
Yeah, and you can often see those and share those with the CEO, and hopefully that's a convincing argument. Not to go scare tactics again, that's not my go-to.
The last piece I'll say is often people in that position are looking for valuation in their company, and there's an extreme value to having cybersecurity protocols and policies in place when you do go put that company up for sale.
Well, that's a bright spot. Thank you for that, Jordan. So much of this I hate. Okay, I have one final question. So have we ever caught the criminal mastermind? Because like we all think it's like the sinister guy with the long curly, is it an old granny? In my mind, it's an old granny. Have we ever caught one of these people?
I think more typically they're like 14-year-old kids, seriously. As you would expect with hoodies on and, you know, usually offshore, but not always. But that's a great question. I don't know if they do. You hear about this happening all the time. You're like, did they ever catch these guys? Like, are we doing anything here? It seems like the success rate is a lot lower than with like shoplifters or car burglars or something, you know. But I don't know. Do you guys have any data on that or?
I got caught when I was in middle school. I didn't know my email could be traced that easy. I sent a dumb one to the White House.
I thought you meant stealing stereos.
You sent an email to the White House?
Yeah, and then they figured it out and it raised.
And it was
alarm.
Nasty?
Yeah, well, no, it wasn't that, but it was like, it was like they could tell it was a kid, you know, and they like knew exactly where it came from.
Did you get a knock on the door?
No. It was like it wasn't that. It was the librarian figured it out and got a hold of me, but so I wasn't getting arrested or anything, but I did, yeah.
But look at you now. So there is hope. Okay, I think that's like the perfect way to end this. Well, I appreciate you all so much, Jordan, Mark, and Corey. You guys are awesome. Thank you to our question askers. I hope you enjoy the book. Thanks, guys.